Midnight breeze blew across Richard Knowlton's face. Cold grief struck him harsher than the image of his dead wife. The desert sky littered with starlight became taunting. Outlaw or not, he thought no man should ever witness their wife's chest cavity being torn apart by such horrific things. The year was 1871, and money came to those who were willing to get filthy. Richard did his share of bloodshed, torture, robbery, and trading his humanity for currency. Meanwhile, his wife was 4 months pregnant. Luckily, a train heist went splendidly well, gifting his new family a beautiful wooden cabin on the outskirts of town. Now his revolvers were stored in the bedroom drawer, lest self-defense was direly needed. Richard had been a bulky bastard, whom's right hook could crack about half a row of teeth down your throat. Moonlight Riders, the posse he saddled with, didn't make much of a fuss about him leaving their side. They all knew eventually if you never stopped playing the game, you are bound to meet the Reaper. Also, they were criminals, not monsters who would risk a child without both parents. One peaceful night, while Richard made love to his wife before her pregnancy gotten late in months and too painful to perform intercourse, knocking rattled the front door. Richard put on the closest pair of pants and cursed at his still stiff cock. "Okay, goddammit, I'm coming," he shouted. "But not how I'd want, you cock-blocking son of a bitch," he muttered, opening the door. On the porch, soaked in sweat and bug-eyed, was Darrell Conway. His hair was matted with mysterious gunk, his beard unkempt, and his shirt stained in blood and dirt. Immediately, Richard's stomach sunk like an anchor, weighing down a hollow rowboat above ocean depths. "Darrell, what the hell happened to you?" Richard said to his longtime friend, who broke in whimpers. "They got Paul and Domino. They're dead." The Moonlight Rider names hung in the air. Richard couldn't make sense out of it. Paul was a brutal shot with an eagle eye. Domino led them through hellstorms without a single nerve shaking his demeanor. Nothing about the strongest members of their posse being pronounced dead made sense. "Dead?" Richard stuttered. "Dead," Darrell said, like an echo. "We were chasing a bounty down from Creek Falls. Some gypsy folk giving the sheriff's mama the slip. They stole a mighty fine expensive necklace, real ruby, passed down through generation. When we came to a halt at the mountain crossing, they ran into some caves. Paul shot 1 out of 8. God knows he always had good aim." Darrell trailed off until Rich snapped in front of his face. "Stay with me now." "Yeah, okay. Where was I? Oh, right. The caves. Domino had a shouting match with those gypsies until one suddenly cried out and shot 2 times. That's when they all began screaming and firing inside the cave. The main gypsy that did their share of talking came running down toward us. Before Domino took the shot, we saw one of them." "Who?" "Not who, Rich. What. It had wings, like a giant bat, but its feet were black as night and sharp. Both talons latched onto the gypsy and took him in the sky." Richard sat down on his front porch chair and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Now nothing truly made sense. "Darrell, you buy something from a medicine man? Giant bat? What bat are you talking about here? A damn dinosaur?" "No," Richard said in an adolescent tone. "No, Rich. I don't know what it was exactly, but it came back down from the sky and completely bit Paul's head clean off his body. Domino told us to get back on our horses and ride away. We did as told. When we caught speed and felt safe enough to turn around and count who all made it out alive, we saw Domino being dragged by his horse. His stomach had been clawed open. We still have his body back at camp, if you don't believe me, Rich.
Richard swallowed the lump in his throat, and disbelief still hung between them. And much as he hated the idea of seeing his best friend's stomach look like expired pasta sauce, he had to see for himself. He kissed his wife, not knowing it would be their last moment of intimacy, then rode to camp. 3 men huddled around a fire pit silently. They only gave Richard a pitiful stare and went back to admiring how the flame danced in their iris. He leapt off his horse and stood over the blood-stained cloth covering everything except Domino's feet. His heart rate was rapid as the cloth slowly slid past the pale face that looked more like a wax version of a human being. Under his chest, where his stomach used to be, was a jumble of guts overlaying each other like fresh red paint on tangled roots.
Christ,
Rich said, throwing the cloth over Domino's head.
Those things, they were demonic, brother.
Mark stood up from his sitting log and walked by Rich.
We were after a bounty. Just wanted to do good for once. No more outlaw bullshit, you know? We wanted to set things right, be a part of the community. None of this should have been bloodshed.
Both men spoke to each other while staring at the corpse. Moonlight shone brilliantly. Blue hue transcended across the desert sand, cold and haunting. Cacti stood throughout the land like southwestern scarecrows. They sat around the fire until a wide shadow came gently over their heads. Slow, quiet, and steady. At first, cloud coverage, and then an angel of death. One saw men lifted their heads to face it. That's when it screeched. But what terrified them was it never came down. The shadow caught the small town full of life in its all-wide eyes and could taste generations on its tongue. Young, old, women, men, most importantly, a woman harvesting her newborn child. The Moonlight Riders got on their horses and chased after it. Well, at least Richard, Mark, and surprisingly Daryl. Mark pulled the revolver out his holster and tried shooting it out the sky, but it was too high and fast.
Yeah!
Richard shouted, running his stallion to her limit.
Come on, girl! Yeah! Yeah!
At that moment, Rich felt terrified for the first time in 20 years. When he was 12 years old, his father made him shoot his first animal, a pig. He remembered how its eyes were human-like, and before pulling the trigger, while his father devoured his remaining childhood, he thought it might have been reincarnated into a pig. Maybe his old man was about to make him put a bullet through an actual human being's forehead. Now, Rich felt that exact fear, but this time he'd completely lose his humanity if this night-stalking creature tore the town and his beloved to flesh ribbons. Above them, more took flight, communicating through eerie cries. Before arrival, they could hear the horrific noise of gunfire and massacre. Distantly, people were being lifted up and dropped to their deaths, like when a hawk cracks open a turtle shell, except this was human bones. The sheriff came out, gun blazing, until his right rib cage was compressed through his back by an awfully large talon. Richard watched somebody free fall from 70 feet above and crash through the pub roof. Mark shot a flying creature, but it didn't react. He only sat there, saddled on his horse, while this bat from hell drove its long, sharp teeth into an escort's shoulder, ripping her in half without hesitation. Darrell hid behind some barrels after his horse bucked him off before getting its throat cut open. The horse's head dangled inches from the dirt, while the rest of its body galloped for seconds more, then collapsed.
Rich, go check on your old lady,
Mark shouted over the chaos.
But what about you two? Brother, we've decided our fate long ago when we never left this gang. You've got a kid on the way. Rich, please, man, just go!
Richard bit his tongue and gripped the leather strap until his knuckles turned white.
Yeah!
And with that, he rode toward his cottage home to never see Mark again. Mark ran away as his steed was drained of its blood. He had one last chance at killing these things and knew it would be sacrificial. A small oil refinery on the edge of town beside the railroad station.
Hey! Over here, you flying rats! Come here, you son of bitches!
Mark shot at them until one bullet remained in the chamber.
Come kill me, you gerbil with wings! Let's go!
They all four took flight in a sonic boom. Those who were still alive witnessed the standoff of a century. Mark aimed at the oil tank and took his last shot before the flames engulfed everything in its vicinity. The cave dwellers flapped their wings desperately as the explosion took them back to hell. Unfortunately, other lives were lost because of this, and many came out injured. Richard saw the bright light distantly and knew all had been lost. His wife kept the fight alive within.
Come on, honey. Stay safe.
Nightfall thickened as Richard approached their cottage home. Everything was pitch black and the front door squeaked, barely staying on its last hinge. Mentally, he felt that exact same way. Rich lit match after match, just needing to see around him. The floorboards kept weeping with age under his boots. When he finally made it to their fireplace, he tossed the match and brought light to the living room. The furniture had been in a disarray, torn, flipped over, and broken. A table stuck out of the wall outside their bedroom. What sounded like a large meaty lobster shell being split open came from behind the door. He remembered when the gang took that trip by the coastline and ate seafood for the first time. Paul thought it was fancy feasting, but in reality, they just ate overpriced lobster sold by an alcoholic sailor. Now his stomach felt seasick as the door slowly opened. A giant bat thing hovered behind her corpse, her pregnant stomach cut open from what must have been the most gruesome C-section. Its claw went from underneath her belly, around the left side, and ended between her breast. Between its sharp teeth were infant legs. The only silver lining was their child possibly died before birth. When Richard grabbed his revolver from the dresser drawer, it sprung its wings outward, splashing fluid from his wife's body all over the room and took flight through the ceiling. Richard stood there in shock, while covered in blood and guts. Many nights have passed since that dreadful memory. He searched throughout the land, hoping he would find their cave, but what Richard discovered was an entire tunnel system leading miles deep. Hundreds of them, in each mountain and valley. What he needed was a new crew.
What an intriguing story. That was what came from the aeolian caves. Written and copyrighted by Raymond M.T. Cummins. I hope you enjoyed this frequency